You're watching Weathering the Season, Severe Storms, with Chief Meteorologist Ben Jones and the 13WMAZ Weather Team.
Thanks for joining us. Tonight, we're helping you weather the season of severe storms. Now, you turn to us to keep you safe and informed when storms arrive, and it's not something we take lightly. In fact, there's a lot that goes into our decision-making and preparations behind the scenes, down to the colors we use on air, our staffing plans, and the language we use to tell you what's going on. And yes, that includes rolling up the sleeves. Tonight, we're explaining some of those letters and numbers, so when you hear level 4 or EF2, you can better prepare yourself, your family, and your neighbors for a potentially serious situation. We have tips from experts on the ground, plus footage from some of the bigger storms. We'll talk about how to prepare for storms this spring and on into the summer. We're also breaking down the science, a peek behind the curtain, if you will, to show you how our process works, whether we're tracking rain and rumbles or hail and tornadoes. So stick around as we help you navigate the severe storm season. Let's start with what we usually see ahead of severe weather. You see those risk maps from the National Weather Service. You know, the ones that say level through 5, all that stuff. And it seems pretty simple, right? But there's a lot more that goes into that 1 to 5 than you think. Meteorologist Alex Forbes breaks it down.
Anytime you see severe weather outlooks on 13 WMAZ, they're issued by the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. And those outlooks, they can be confusing at times. In fact, the SPC technically doesn't use 1 to 5 as its primary way for assigning severe weather threats. They use words. A level 1 is marginal, a level 2 is slight, a level 3 enhanced, a level 4 moderate, and a level 5 high. But here on 13 WMAZ, you don't hear us use those words, thanks in part to a capstone project I did in college. I found that the average person wouldn't rank those words from least to most threatening in the way I just described. And thus, the 1 to 5. The probability of severe weather drives the outlook categories. On days 1 and 2, the outlook shows severe probabilities for tornadoes, wind, and hail. With greater uncertainty about severe storm type in the future, the outlook on day 3 only forecasts the combined probability of all types of severe weather. The probability represents the chance of severe weather occurring within 25 miles of any point. So this scale predicts the number of storms rather than the strength of storms. The Storm Prediction Center can still highlight the risk of strong storms by using what's called a hatched area. That means an increased likelihood of significant severe weather. It can include tornadoes rated at EF2 or greater, thunderstorm wind gusts of hurricane force or higher, or hail 2 inches or larger in diameter.
Appreciate it, Alex. Besides the numbers, there are 2 W words we use all the time on the air: watches and warnings, and they mean pretty different things. Here's a quick breakdown on the differences between a watch and a warning. Now, a watch means conditions are favorable for severe weather. In other words, the atmosphere is ready and that severe weather could happen. So, know where to seek shelter, be prepared, have a way to be updated if the situation gets worse. We are watching for that possibility. When a warning is issued, it's time to go and take cover. It means a storm has been deemed nasty enough for the National Weather Service to have something to say about it. And we're probably on the air telling you to get to a safe spot and hang out there until it passes. So now that we've talked terminology, how do we forecast severe storms? And I say we because I have the whole team here to talk this over. All right, so guys, let's take a look kind of behind the scenes when it comes to tracking a severe weather system, from sifting through forecast models to nailing down the arrival and exit times.
Yeah, so the process starts with the models. That's what we're always looking at. That's what we're using to see what's going on in the future. Now, we start with long range models, right? So we're looking over a long period of time. And where those models aren't as high resolution, so we're looking at a larger scale as to what's going to happen. And over time, we have a large window of potential severe weather in terms of the actual time frame, and then we narrow that down with each model run. And then once we get into the shorter range models, the high resolution models, we're able to get a better idea of the timing, which again will narrow down, but also the threats as well. Because typically, whenever we have a tornado threat, we don't have a good idea of that until we have that high resolution guidance.
Yeah, good point right there. All right, so we can spot a potential severe weather maker, I'd say a week out, but sometimes you can get a kind of a better look at even farther out than that. But Jordan, when would our confidence kind of start becoming a reality as it starts to come into view?
Yeah, so 48 hours, I would say, is that perfect window. And that's not always going to be perfect. Sometimes it's bigger than that, sometimes it's smaller than that. But 48 hours is typically when all of these models that we talk about all start to finally merge together and kind of get a general idea. But even 24, 48 hours out, I mean, things can change drastically. We can start out being under a level 1 and then go to a level 2 or 3, or we can start at level 2 or 3 and go back down to level 1. So it's a lot of changes that happen. It's our job to keep you guys at home up to date.
And on that point, I would also point out, we talked about the Storm Prediction Center outlooks earlier. A lot of times what they like to do is start with a lower risk and then ramp it up, as opposed to saying, all right, we're looking at a level 3 and then bring it down to a 1, because then, that kind of displays the messaging a little bit. Yeah. So that's always the goal, is to not overshoot it too early.
And we know one of the most important things folks pay attention to when there's a threat of severe weather: school updates. Jordan went to Houston County to talk about what goes into decision making on those severe weather days.
Is this something that we may have to close schools for, or is this something that we keep our schools open?
It's a hot topic and a big decision. When severe weather is imminent, Houston County Executive Director of School Operations, Walter Stevens, starts communicating with local officials early, asking the big questions.
Is it going to cause any type of power outages? Is it going to prevent our buses and those kind of things from transporting students? I think those are some of the things that we really take a look at.
With over 15,000 students transported every day, all eyes are on the forecast. But sometimes that forecast can change, so they are tied in with the Emergency Management Director.
We look at that information coming from Chief Stoner. Let's talk about it. Let's begin putting a plan in place in the event that this may become a lot worse than what is anticipated.
There's a lot behind the scenes, but it lets teachers like Latasha Zellner focus on education.
I heard this on the news, I heard that on the news, this school and that school or this county, and I'm like, baby, you're safe here. This is the safest place for you to be. We go through the steps in the event that something would happen, and we stay on high alert, but we do business as usual.
And sometimes being home isn't the safest option.
We can actually provide them with meals if those meals extend beyond breakfast, beyond lunch. If they're being transported home, they get home, nobody's there. Let's just say the neighbors are not there. So now you have a kid who's potentially could be at home and no one actually there, versus being here where there's a huge support system that can address whatever needs that they have to have addressed.
I'm at peace when I come, and I know that there are some things going on with weather, and I feel like we provide that peace and safety for our students as well.
Let's take a look back in our storm archive. Monroe and Crawford counties saw tornadoes in January of 2021. Our team was on the ground just after this mobile home overturned. Emergency management had to rescue a woman from inside, but she was okay. The National Weather Service ended up designating 3 tornadoes. The worst traveled 3.5 miles and had wind speeds of up to 95 miles per hour. When severe storms are coming your way, it's important to stay informed about what's going on. Now, if you're not near your TV, we have some additional ways to stay safe and alert. Tornado sirens are a great way to receive warnings. They were started in the 1970s and modeled after air raid sirens. Despite there being more than 300 sirens in central Georgia, not every neighborhood is in range. So you can't just rely on tornado sirens to let you know when there's severe weather in your area. Sometimes they don't work, or the sound of thunder can block them out. You need more than one way to get severe weather warnings. If you can't get us on air, you should have a way to get wireless emergency alerts. Many counties have a code red notification system you can sign up for via text. You can also set up alerts yourself. Go to your settings, then notifications, and turn on your public safety alerts and emergency alerts. You can also get notifications from apps like the National Weather Service or the 13 WMAZ mobile app. After a tornado touches down, the team at the National Weather Service in Peachtree City works to figure out how strong it was. Meteorologist Alex Pry went to their office to peek behind the process of classifying and surveying tornado damage.
Well, today, with the radar technology that we have, certainly we can estimate how potentially strong a tornado was.
The key word in that statement by National Weather Service meteorologist David Nadler: estimate, not classify. Winds are often associated with the strength of a tornado, but
the intensity of a tornado has to be determined by the damage that it sort of creates.
When it comes to classifying tornadoes, National Weather Service meteorologists may get their start with radar data, but what matters most is the damage on the ground.
It shouldn't be ignored, but at the same time, that's not how we actually rate, tornado intensity.
In order to assign a tornado its rating, the National Weather Service visits the site of the damage and records a damage assessment survey. They use a wide variety of damage indicators to ultimately rate a tornado. But what all exactly are they looking at? Let's take an example from right here in central Georgia, the 2022 Statham's Landing tornado in Bon Air.
We just went to where the hardest hit homes were first, and then we worked our way sort of outward.
Things such as roofs and exterior walls are analyzed by their degree of damage, or DOD, and other structures to match the strength of the winds that would cause the damage.
There's 10 DODs for homes, 1 being the least amount of damage, all the way to 10 being where it's just complete destruction.
And the material a home is built with, or how secure it is to the foundation, is also taken into consideration. The highest ranking that is given to an individual data point is eventually what the tornado is categorized as.
Now, tornadoes must produce some form of observable damage to be surveyed before the National Weather Service gives it an official grade on the EF scale. It all comes down to location of impact and the amount of damage. Next, we're talking seasonal thunderstorms, spring and summer, what makes them unpredictable and what to know about each kind. And we have you set with everything you need to pack in your severe weather kit. As we go to break, here's Monroe County EMA Director Matthew Jackson.
After the storm, please stay off the roadways as much as possible so that emergency service workers can get out there and do their job. It's going to be a lot more hazardous out on the roadways, but staying in their home and staying in that shelter as much as possible.
We're looking back on some devastating storms from our area over the years. Mother's Day 2008 in Bibb County, that one was a doozy. Multiple tornadoes moving west to east through central Georgia over many hours. So that was a classic springtime setup, a large-scale system we could see coming for days. We were prepared for rough stuff and just had to ride it out. So that's tornado stuff. But thunderstorms in general are not just a springtime thing. They're a common threat year-round here in central Georgia. While we typically see the most thunderstorms during spring and summer, they're very different during these two seasons. Meteorologist David Guerrero breaks it all down.
In the springtime, thunderstorms are usually more widespread and predictable. Why? Spring storms are associated with large-scale weather systems. That means that we can see these storms a few days or even a week ahead of time. Tornadoes are more common in the spring as there is more mixing of warm and cold air. Once we reach the summer, there are fewer large-scale weather systems. In the spring, the jet stream in the upper levels of the atmosphere drive large-scale systems, but later it shifts farther north. As a result, we end up with mainly warm weather. That doesn't mean we have fewer thunderstorms in the summer. That number will actually increase. Temperatures and muggy weather peak during the summer months, and that combination of warm, moist air fuels instability in the atmosphere, which is crucial to the formations of thunderstorms. These storms are more difficult to forecast as their timing is random or hit or miss, and they're more scattered. But what about tornadoes? They can form in the summer, but they are less likely because of the lack of upper air dynamics needed for development. Regardless, it is important to stay weather aware during both seasons and remember the differences between these storm systems.
Of course, now, the mechanics that are involved in severe weather from spring to summer is not the same thing. It's a different animal there. And so that kind of changes our approach to that. Springtime is all hands on deck. We're all ready for this thing days away. Summertime is like, we'll see what this afternoon or evening provides, right, Dave?
It's a completely different ballgame. So in the springtime, the storms are associated with large-scale weather systems. And with those systems, the National Weather Service would maybe put a watch on either high winds or potentially a tornado. But in the summertime, it's hit or miss. These storms pop up just randomly in the afternoon, and we typically may have like 10 minutes to truly know if something severe may occur. So the difference is in the springtime, we have enough time to see if something will happen. But in the summertime, we just have to wait to see what the afternoon gives us.
And if you want to relate that to what's going on at home, right? Think about it as like a boiling pot of water, trying to guess where the bubbles are going to pop up. That's literally what we're trying to do.
And it works on that same kind of thing. Heat of the day, bubbling up. It's like playing whack-a-mole some days. Like you just don't know where they're going to pop up. Some day end up, no warnings.
Exactly.
Which is a great thing. All right, now once we feel confident that a severe weather event, is imminent, this is going to happen, we begin planning for this and how we're going to handle this on air. So, Pry, talk about keeping the Weather Center staffed, at all times during an event and how and when we plan to go on the air.
Yeah, so if we're fairly confident that we're going to have a severe weather threat, whether it be a day out or right before a shift or something like that, we are going to make sure that we are prepared properly all the time. So we are going to make sure that we are staffed. If it runs in between our shifts into the overnight hours, we'll make sure that the person working stays a little bit longer, and then the person coming in for the next shift will come in a little bit earlier. So we always have someone on staff here to cover any severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings, whatever it may be. And then when in terms of going on the air, we're talking severe thunderstorm warnings, we'll always go live on our Facebook stream, on our YouTube stream to cover those no matter what, wherever they are in central Georgia.
It's not even just us and the National Weather Service. I mean, we have to talk about producers, you know. Do we have producers here and staffed ready to go live for whatever we need, such as a tornado warning? Or do we have production here ready to go live for that matter? Exactly.
Yeah, got to get us on the air.
Yeah. It's truly a team event.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and I'm proud of that, actually. That's the way we do it here, because I want to know what you are thinking, and hopefully you want to know what I'm thinking. I don't know, but it kind of helps at the end of the day so that we're all on the same page, because it is a very serious thing, and we don't want to leave anything out.
Whenever we get into severe weather situations, we always talk about going to your tornado safe place. But have you ever considered what to keep in your tornado safe place? Now, a lot of the times you might bounce around on the internet and find a list of things that don't necessarily apply to us in central Georgia. So my checklist here is things that are relevant to us and the type of severe weather threats that we face. So let's go through the checklist now and talk about the first thing, most importantly, probably the weather radio. All right, so you're in the tornado safe place. Say you don't have the ability to stream 13 WMAZ in the moment or watch us on TV. Well, that weather radio is going to be a direct pipeline of information from the National Weather Service. Of course, the weather radio runs on batteries. So think about the different types of batteries for things that you might have in that safe place that you might need going forward. AA's, AAA's, maybe even some of those larger batteries as well. And speaking of that, how about portable phone chargers? Make sure they're charged as well. So check them every few months. Make sure that they're at 100% because over time they will lose their battery power. Let's switch to food and water. Obviously bottled water, a good thing to keep in your tornado safe place. Not need a ton of it, but maybe enough for a day or two just to have handy. But also non-perishable foods. I'm talking about things like peanut butter and other things that have long expiration dates. But again, check those as well to make sure that they're not expired, and then you end up in your tornado safe place with a bunch of expired food. All right, let's talk about when the actual weather is moving into your area. Things like bicycle helmets, they're good to put on. It can protect your head from any kind of debris that's in and around your area. But then also hard sole shoes. A lot of people don't think about this. Say you end up in a tornado situation, you're dealing with some damage. You don't want to be walking around with, say, rubber sole shoes. You want the hard sole to protect your feet from anything you might be walking over. And lastly, pillows. Always good to put over your head in case you end up in any kind of weather situation like that. Of course, if you happen to need any of this, check in with 13 WMAZ after the fact. We're going to have all the coverage you need right here on 13.
When we come back, how the 13 WMAZ weather team tracks severe storm coverage and stays in constant communication to get you the information you need.
Make a plan. You know, we call it blue sky days in the emergency management world, but go ahead and take the time to what if your life, basically. You know, try to decide in certain bad situations, what do I need, what does my family need to get us by until emergency responders can get to us or help us, or something like if we go 2 to 3 days without power. In the event like that, what is your plan?
Welcome back. Of course, we're talking severe storms, how we track all that stuff. And one of the vital tools, which may sound simple, is a text thread on the phone, back and forth between us as we go through days leading up to a springtime event. I mean, you've got models changing, you've got all that, and then sometimes our own perspective on that model data can change from shift to shift.
Right. One of the things we look at is how the models are starting. So that's how we're always talking about. It's like, okay, well, this model's starting 6 hours behind where the storm's
the
actually
initiation
are.
is off. It's initiating the wrong spot. Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes, us individually, me at 3:30 in the morning, I might not notice that right off the bat. So if I wake up and look at my phone and see that Ben's pointed out, hey, this is starting a little wonky, that puts me in a better spot as well. But yes, we're talking among the five of us. We're also talking with the National Weather Service. You're others talk about the National Weather Service chat when we're on TV. So it's not just us, it's a whole team of partners that are talking about severe weather events. That includes the emergency managers, the meteorologists at the Weather Service, us, and then sometimes people you might not even think about. Sometimes different people pop in there like, oh yeah, I guess they are relevant here.
But it's not overly complicated. At the end of the day, I mean, yes, we do collaborate with a lot of people, but our communication comes down to a simple group text of all of us in iMessage.
Right.
It's just like the normal everyday person. So, yes.
Sometimes actually we will see the opinion change in a short amount of time. It'll be like, hey, not just one model, 2, 3 models, they've given up on this. This thing is not going to be what we thought, let's back it down. Or this is a bigger beast than we originally thought, so we need to start kind of changing the way we're going to view it.
Yes.
I think what all that boils down to is, whenever you see a forecast from us, it's coming from all of us, not just the individual meteorologist on the TV at one time. It's coming from myself, Jordan, Ben, other Alex, and David as well.
We saw pretty devastating stuff as recently as last March in Baldwin County. Winds from an EF1 tornado reached 105 miles per hour, and we saw tons of downed trees. Parts of Northside Baptist Church were destroyed, the hospital was hit, and even the EMA Center saw damage. Monica Jones's mobile home was destroyed by 3 large trees that fell.
I heard everybody keep calling my name, and I mean, I couldn't move.
But we also saw the good in people as folks came out for a food drive that same week. We really appreciate it when you share info about severe storms that touch down in your community, but we always want you to remember to do it safely. You can text photos and videos to us at 478-752-1309 or send them into the 13WMAZ Weather Network Facebook group. We also have the Near Me feature on the 13WMAZ mobile app where you can upload a photo or video.
Trim any branches that overhang your house or sheds or vehicle parking areas. Get down any loose or broken branches that may just be hanging. Secure anything outdoors. So trampolines, patio sets, anything that may be picked up and thrown by the wind. Doing simple things like that will help prevent a lot of damage, even from a simple thunderstorm that may roll through.
Don't forget to download our mobile app. You can get it in the Google Play or Apple Store, or you can scan the QR code right on the screen. Once you get the app, be sure to sign up for notifications, and you'll get the latest weather and news alerts sent right to your phone. That wraps it up for our Weathering the Season Severe Storm Special. We hope you stay weather aware with us by following us on air and online for all your severe weather information 24/7. Thanks again for joining us.